Good evening, everybody. Hello. My name is Fiorenza, and I work for Cannes Lions. How many of you have been to the Cannes Lion Festival of Creativity? Raise your hand. Some of you? A couple of people over there? Okay. Well, so Cannes Lions is the largest event for the creative and advertising community in the world. 65 years of creativity that run at the festival in the south of France, in Cannes, every year in June. So Cannes Lions is also an awards. We receive about 30,000 campaigns from all over the world. So in my position, my role as head of creative excellence for the festival is to really look at the work that get entered and the content that we run at the festival and to identify common themes and trends that are likely to impact our industry going forward. So I'm in a really privileged position because, as I said, we receive 30,000 pieces of work every year and also 600 hours of content throughout the festival. So it's a lot to say, but after the festival, what I do, I look at all the content and the work that has been entered, and we identify common themes and trends. And one dominant theme from this year's festival was brand activism. So I'm here today to talk to you a little bit more about brand activism. So when we talk about brand activism, the first thing we need to think about is what drives brand activism. And there are three key factors that drive brand activism: listening, empathy, and leadership. Let's talk about these three factors. First of all, listening. If you work for a brand or for an agency, you need to listen to your consumers, right? So listening to your consumers in order to drive growth, but also to generate trust, to build trust. And then empathy. It's not enough to listen to your consumers. You need to respond. So responsiveness is a very important factor. And empathy is connected to responsiveness. Leadership. Let's talk about leadership as well. True activists, brands, through active brand and leaders that are active leaders, are the leaders that are really connecting to customers, are really standing for the brand purpose, and they are not worried, they are not scared to go against the masses to kind of create change, to generate change for society or for the brand as well. But what are the challenges of brand activism? First of all, a little bit of data, because it's important to talk about numbers a little bit. 75% of consumers expect brand to have a real impact on their well-being and their quality of life. But a really important piece of data that I think is it's astonishing if you think about it, is 64% of global consumers say that they choose a brand because of what they stand for, or what the brand stands for. So 64% of consumers is a big percentage, right? This was not the same 10 years, 15 years ago. So things are changing. The way the consumer choose a brand, select a brand is changing, and 64% of those consumers choose a brand because of their stand on societal, ethical issues. But we need to also remember that brands are trying to make impact for a long while, and they're doing it right, they're doing wrong. I'm going to show you some examples of brands that are doing that right and brands that made mistakes, because it's easy to choose and pick a cause to stand for, but it's not all causes are right for a brand, because obviously there are brands that can stand for a cause, but this cause has nothing to do with the brand values, with what the brand stands for. So it's important for brands to choose the right causes to stand for, and not just to jump on the most fashionable causes like global warming or pollution or child slavery or poverty. Big causes, yes, but not all brands have the right ethos and the right values to be connected, in order to be connected to these causes. I want to show you a video of 2 leaders that came to Cannes this year on a panel debate that I put together with my team. And one of them is Colleen de Courcy. She is the CCO and co-president of Biden & Kennedy. And the second woman, she is one of the main executive leaders of the Body Shop brand. And this is what they said in Cannes at the festival about brand activism, what brand activism is for them. So they were telling us their view on brand activism. Let's have a look.
Brands are going to be left behind if they don't have purpose, and the best ones are activist brands.
You can be an advocate. You can be a cheerleader. But if you're going to be an activist, you need to be prepared to be really uncomfortable and to say things that might lose you some of your consumer base.
And I really like when she says, if you really want to be an activist, you need to kind of be prepared to be uncomfortable. And you need to be prepared to lose, perhaps, some of your customer base. And this is what happened to Nike. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this piece of work. Okay, thank you. Raise your hand. Great, you're connecting. The Dream Crazy campaign. So I give you a little bit of a background. This is a very interesting case of brand activism. So this athlete was taking a stand against police brutality in the US, in America. And how did he do that? During the finals of the NFL, where was the time for the team to sing the national anthem, he decided not to do it and to basically get down, instead of standing up with the rest of his team, to protest against police brutality in the US. And this action was all the media was talking about it. And then the most incredible thing is that Nike decided to defend this guy, decided to stand with him, to stand for what he believes. And that was not a popular choice, because the media and the specialists, creative people, they were saying, okay, Nike, this is the end of Nike. This is the death of Nike. Well, the opposite happened. Sales for Nike dropped quite a lot for the first few days of the campaign, but after that, they raised to over 31%, which is incredible for a brand like Nike, right? 31% compared to 17% at the same time the year before. So really, that was good for Nike, good for sales, but also really good for the brand, because although it was a very unpopular choice, so very uncomfortable choice for most people, Nike didn't think the same, right? Or most people. Let's have a look at the case study. We'll tell you more.
Several people posting videos burning Nike shoes.
Nike is running straight into a political controversy.
People are so angry they're burning their own shoes.
Colin Kaepernick refused to stand during the national anthem, taking a knee to protest police brutality.
Nike revealed Colin Kaepernick as the face of its latest marketing campaign.
Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything.
Is Nike taking a risk?
I think they're taking a stand.
Tonight, the first game of the new season, and Nike is running an ad featuring Colin Kaepernick.
If people say your dreams are crazy, good. Stay that way.
Most of this country was talking about this last night at their dinner table.
And I'm never buying another Nike product again.
Nike's stock today dropping 3%.
Who's going to win this cultural showdown of standing for the anthem? We are.
Check this out. I went out today and bought me some Nike stuff. Oh,
I want to applaud Nike. Speak up. We're right behind you.
This thing is bigger than just the United States, and I think it resonates throughout the world.
Kaepernick asegura que es
30 años de su lema, Just Do It.
Nike stock reached an all-time high last Friday.
I'm gonna buy more Nikes now.
Nike's on the right side of history.
So don't ask if your dreams are crazy. Ask if they're crazy enough.
So as you can see, everybody was saying, well, including President Trump, right? This is the end of his career. This is the end of Nike. And the exact opposite happened. The guy became a social phenomenon, and Nike, obviously, brand awareness raised to a new high, standing for a very important cause, police brutality, as I said. So let's talk about another piece of work, another case study, which is really controversial. It's about a company that produces organic sanitary toiletries and products. And they are the female company. They're called the female company. And I don't know how many of you are aware that there is a tax for tampons in most European countries, which is at 19% in Germany, and around 18% in other countries. So really, it's a luxury tax. The same tax gets applied to luxury goods like caviar. How can you compare caviar with tampons, right? Well, there's a 90% tax on tampons in most European countries and in the world. So this company, what they decide to do is to kind of fight that, to change that, and they went to the politician didn't listen. So what they did, to avoid the tax, to avoid consumer also paying more money for tampons, they decided to sell tampons in books. So producing books, because the tax on books is only 7%. So obviously, if you buy tampons in a book, your tampons will cost you €1 instead of €7, right? A box of it. And so they decided to kind of go around the law, and they did it. And they started to sell hundreds of these books in supermarkets. And this obviously provoked a debate in Germany. And finally, politicians reacted to it. And what happened? Well, now we have 200,000 signatures against the luxury tampon tax. Things haven't changed yet, but because of these campaigns, other countries have done the same. And now the tax has been abolished in India, Canada, Kenya, and few other countries because of that campaign. So again, a brand taking a stance, making a change, driving change, in this case impacting laws, impacting society. Let's have a look at it.
I was shocked to learn that pads, tampons, and other menstrual products are taxed as luxury goods.
I suspect it's because men were making the law.
Right, Mr. President, men made the tax laws. 50 years ago, German lawmakers, who were all men, decided to tax feminine hygiene essentials like tampons with the highest rate of 19%. But things like caviar, oil paintings or truffles with only 7%. So tampons are the real luxury? Menstruation is luxury? Breaking the law wasn't an option for the Female Company, an online shop for feminine hygiene products. So how could we sell tampons for 7% instead of 19%? We outsmarted the law with the law itself by selling tampons packaged as a book, because books are also only taxed with 7%. Hello to the tampon book. A book that is a packaging for tampons to save taxes. A book that is a provocative message of existing gender inequality in our tax system. Filled with 15 tampons and 40 pages of explicit content about your period. Your period that is still treated as something to be embarrassed of. The book sold out within a day. The second edition within a week. It put the unfair tax system on the agenda of influencers and media.
1.650 € Steuern zahlt jede Frau in ihrem Leben nur für Tampons.
Germany's largest TV networks started to put pressure on the German Ministry of Finance. The message became a political message, too political for Facebook, which temporarily banned the content. Leading female politicians and members of the German parliament started sharing the tampon book. The petition on change.org got more than 150,000 signatures. And now, the German Committee on Legal Affairs must officially debate the tampon tax.
So as you can see, really big changes happening, because of brand taking a stance, because of brand starting to, with a movement or with an idea that become reality and makes things different for society, for people, for customers in this case, because these people, they're gonna buy tampons cheaper. And also, well, it's really fighting gender inequality on a sort of higher level. Another case that I want to show you, really interesting one, which is in relation of another big problem that is still in the world these days, which is child exploitations in third world country, so child slavery. Well, it's still a thing, and this is a chocolate brand. It's a small, I didn't even know who they were. When they came to Cannes and they told me their story, I was fascinated, really fascinated by what they are trying to achieve. It's a Dutch chocolate brand, and they are actively, with their products, fighting child slavery in West Africa, because obviously that is related to plantations and cocoa production. So as you can see, maybe you cannot see very well, but from the slider, even the design of the chocolate bar is done in chunks, and these different shapes represents the differences between countries and laws that are against and pro, in some countries, child slavery. So it's really reminding customers of these issues with the actual product. Let's have a look at the case study, because the case study is very interesting. We'll tell you more about what they are trying to achieve with this campaign.
Let us tell you a little something about our chocolate bar. It's unequally divided, which is indeed difficult to share equally. However, it's going to stay that way because our chocolate tells an important story. Let us explain. Here's where 60% of all the world's cocoa comes from. There are lots and lots of cocoa plantations here, where cocoa farmers work incredibly hard for very little money, and where children are forced into doing illegal and dangerous work, so that big chocolate companies can purchase cocoa for a low price in order to become even bigger and richer. So, as long as the chocolate industry is unequally divided, our bar will stay that way too. Tony's vision is 100% slave-free chocolate. Not just our chocolate, but all chocolate worldwide.
And last but not least, this is a big winner at the festival this year. He won a Grand Prix in the health and wellness category, and a few other awards in other categories. So it's a big winner from this year, and it's from IKEA, and the campaign is called Disables. How many of you know this campaign? Any of you? Okay. So basically, well, IKEA, leading brand in kind of furniture retail, decided to kind of do something that no other brands has done before. It's to produce pieces of furniture for disabled, add-on, as they call them. They can be produced with a 3D printer, so they are functional, but they're also quite cheap to purchase. And it's such a simple idea, but no other furniture brand has done that so well, and definitely not a mainstream brand, right? I met the team at Meccan Tel Aviv. I went to Tel Aviv last year and met the guys that created the campaign when the campaign was just an idea. And I met the copywriter, which has cerebral palsy. So the idea came from this guy because he couldn't access a drawer, or he couldn't stand up from his sofa. So he was telling me about how this idea came to mind. And really, that was just, him and a small team in Tel Aviv from Meccan, and they went to IKEA. And I remember when they told me IKEA was not really keen to begin with to do that campaign, because they were like, okay, well, we haven't really done that before. We don't really want to. How are we going to produce these pieces? It's going to be expensive. How can we mass produce them? And then the copywriter, that guy, is the guy in the picture there, came up with the 3D printer idea. So let's have a look at the campaign and showing you exactly how this was created.
Although I have cerebral palsy, I do everything I can to conduct myself like everyone else. But in my own home, I'm surrounded with furniture crying out, cripple. I'd like to sit on a regular sofa without being afraid I won't be able to get up.
IKEA's vision is to create a better everyday life for the many. Disables give simple and affordable home furnishings for 10% of the population.
Every child, every person is different depending on their needs.
Disability drives innovation.
Even in some of our public libraries, there's 3D printers.
A lot of the solutions, they've been very medicalized down through the years, and nothing as cool as anything you've produced.
ועכשיו אנחנו רוצים להראות לכם יוזמה מיוחדת של רשת איקאה שנקראת Disables.
יוזמה חשובה שתקל על אנשים עם מוגבלויות איקאה, עם ארגון נגישות.
So as you can see, good for the brand, good for the market, good for consumer, because this idea, this product managed to democratize the access for people with an handicap to pieces of furniture that can make their life better. And they're not only cheaper to produce, but they're also printable, so everybody, it's an open source system, so everybody from any country can actually download the design of the product and print them in an IKEA shop everywhere in the world. So that's a great, such a simple but a great idea to help consumers. Brands, so let's talk a little bit about what brands are giving back to society. So are brands giving back as much equity as they are borrowing? Well, I think there are three main ways they can do that, and we've seen that happening with the case studies I show you. First of all, you cannot be an activist brand if you don't produce the right content. It's not just about supporting the right cause, but it's making the right content that can stay with the consumers way after the campaign, the advertising campaign has died. So content is important because the content will implant itself in the consumer's memories and will eventually drive them towards further action. So it's not just about, okay, there is a cause, it's a cool cause, let's jump on this and then let's make it our cause. But if you are smart about it, you want to produce content that will stay with the consumer and will prompt them to make further change, to act further. And important is also having the right partnership, because as you can imagine, not all partnership, brand and cause are working very well. And I'm going to show you an example of a very bad partnership between brand and a cause. It's talking about Pepsi, an example of what a brand shouldn't be doing when they're trying to be an activist brand. And then finally, the focus needs to be on people rather than on the products. Like you see for the IKEA products, yes, we have a product, but at the end of the day, the idea was born because of a need, because of consumers with a handicap, not because of a product, right? So the full circle, starting with consumers, ending with consumers. And I want to show you a last case study, which is slightly different from the ones that I showed you earlier. And why it's different? Because it's a little bit more light-hearted. It's a little bit fun, because not always not all brand activism doesn't mean always standing for a big, popular cause. It could be a niche, small cause, a small market, something perhaps that is only relevant to a small country, to a country, not to the world. So I'm going to show you a case study that perhaps you're not familiar with. I'm not sure if you are aware, in the US, children, they have this so-called lemonade stand. So when you are like 7, 8, 9 years old, with other kids, you make a lemonade stand, and then you sell lemonades to adults, and you make money, and with that money you can buy ice cream, you know. And what happened, there are some laws in some countries in the US that are saying to the parents of those children cannot sell, so they cannot sell lemonade. But it's like a tradition in America. This is a very traditional American habit, costume in some states of America. So because the tradition was dying, really, the company that produced lemonades would decide to take a stand and to fight to keep this tradition alive. Let's have a look. Oh. If it's working.
My lemonade stand got shut down because I didn't have a permit. We were doing just fine until the cops came. I was sad that I couldn't do it because I really liked selling lemonade.
It's ridiculous.
Getting fined? Yes, they get fined. Country Time Lemonade. Heard all about this, and they're just not having it.
If you have a problem with your lemonade stand, The offices of Country Time Legal Aid
are ready to take a stand for you.
Lemonade also in the news this morning. Country Time has launched Legal Aid.
Country Time Lemonade has created a team to help pay fines and get permits for kids across the land.
They are starting a legal defense fund. They're totally serious.
Great job, Country Time.
Yes. I think I'm going to go buy some.
Justice.
So it's a funny campaign. But at the end of the day, they actually managed to change the law in some countries and to allow lemonade stands, to allow this tradition to survive. And I want to leave you with a bit of food for thoughts about the pitfalls of brand activism. How many know, maybe not many of you know this campaign, the Pepsi campaign with one of the Kardashians' sisters. She is the Kendall Kardashian. She was actually hired to act in a Pepsi ad. A Pepsi ad that not many people saw because it was pulled after 24 hours. And why? Because I cannot show you the video. I couldn't find it because it only lasted 24 hours and then the brand deleted it from all media. Why? What happened with that ad? So I picture you the ad, right? So there is a group of young, cool teenagers, young people that are protesting in the street. They are protesting against something. It doesn't say in the ad, okay? So they are protesting, and police and soldiers come forward, try to stop them. And that model, she basically goes to one of the policemen and says to him, this is a can of Pepsi, you know, peace kind of thing, you know, just handing a can of Pepsi to a policeman. And that was like, you know, obviously, the world saw the ad, and there was a huge backlash in the media from politicians and activist brands, because really this is not activism. This is an example of what activism is not. Just basically try to, you know, look at a political issue, look at something that's happening in society and deciding to do an ad just to kind of, you know, support something, but without meaning. So, you know, the model that hand a can of Pepsi to the soldier, that's not true activism. That's no meaning. There's no meaning in that. So the Pepsi, obviously, the CEO of Pepsi kind of, you know, decided to pull the ad 24 hours after, and it was a bit too late because consumers saw it, and there was a huge backlash in the media, and sales for Pepsi went down the road. And they are not going much better right now. So Pepsi is going through a very difficult time at the moment. And this is post that ad. And let's remember one thing, that consumers are wise. Consumers, they understand marketing manipulations. And this was something that really created a big debate on what really brand activism should be. Brand must be authentically line up with a cause and not just jump on the next fashionable, cool cause for the sake of it, right? So the Pepsi attempt really to be cool and showcase something, about the brand that was perhaps against some political issues that are happening in the US right now. But the ad was badly done, and the public and consumer really dislike it. So important remembering that consumers are wise, and they are not really happy when advertising and brands are trying to manipulate them. And so, yes, that's a very important example on what I'm trying to say when I'm talking about true brand activism compared to just wanting to be cool, okay? And decided to jump on the next fashionable cause or issue. So the takeaways from this presentation, I hope you enjoyed the case studies that I show you, but mostly just remembering what we've seen, right? You remember the chocolate brand I told you about? That was a small brand, a niche sort of market, the Dutch market, and the brand, is trying to do something very different. It's actually quite popular now, what they're trying to do, but they started very small, with a small audience. So no, you don't need to start big to be active as a brand, but you can start small and then perhaps progress on it. And then I told you about listening to consumer, but listening is not enough. You need to listen with empathy. So it's also about responsiveness in order to build trust and not just listening. And then it's also important to redirect conversation. So we've seen the Nike campaign, which was a big example of redirecting the conversation on a global level. And then last but not least, beware that activism is not opportunism. We saw the Pepsi campaign and what they were trying to do, which obviously was not very successful. So brands need to remember that they need to sort of balance the purpose with the action. So this is 4 takeaways from my side. But if you want to know more or if you have any questions, you can always email me. I'm happy to send you some cases or to talk more further about this subject. Thank you very much.